topic of the day is automating ticket routing on Zendesk with AI. And the first question that comes to mind is why? Why is it important to use AI to automate the process of routing tickets, and why it is important for you? So let's start from the basics. We basically live in the AI era. We are going through a fundamental shift in the way that we interact with technology. In the 90s, the paradigm was the desktop computer, then we switched to mobile. And in the future, we can already see it now, AI will become through conversational interfaces and other kind of smart devices, the primary interface with which we will interact with technology. This is on a consumer level, but if you're a business, what does that mean for you? It means that AI will be everywhere. So sooner or later, you will deploy some sort of AI at different level and different function of your business. So the question is, do you want to do it early, or do you want to wait and be a laggard in the process? It is estimated that 80% of businesses will have some kind of AI automation in place by 2020. And 85% of customer engagement, meaning interaction with your end customer, would be automated or some sort of automation by 2035. How does that relate with routing of tickets, with customer engagement, customer support, and making sure that the tickets are routed to the right agent? Well, first we need to look at how this process is normally performed in today's contact center. And the classic way of routing ticket is by setting rules, if and then statements, and understand and defining some fields in, for example, your Zendesk account, which when they're paired with the ticket, allow Zendesk to decide which agent, which team, or which view and group should the ticket be assigned to. This can be done with by filtering by channel, using custom fields, using different ways of identifying the user based on email, customer IDs, as well as other forms of business rules and our business hours. This is certainly efficient, but it has some drawbacks. So from our experience with the customers that we've been working up until now, we see that on average it takes about a little less than a minute to sort a ticket manually. And if you are a growing company and you want to increase the number of customers, most likely you will also increase slightly the number of tickets that you receive, and therefore you will have the need to increase the number of resources that you allocate for routing tickets to the different agents and teams. So this means that it's a slow and repetitive process. On top of that, the support industry suffer from a high turnover in the number of agents that work on support teams, which means that the knowledge on how these tickets should be routed and to whom, it's scattered and needs to be refreshed every time there is a new person joining the team. And on top of that, then one FTE or one agent added to the team adds to the overall cost structure of the company, and that is not always possible when the company wants to scale fast. So how is automatic ticket routing coming to the rescue? The main difference between AI routing and basic routing or classic routing is that instead of looking at fields or static information that is submitted when the ticket is created, we analyze the content of the email itself, of the message itself. And we do that with different sorts of algorithms that can understand human language and derive meaning from that. In simple words, we basically provide the capability to route tickets based on the reason or why the customer is writing a support request, the topic or what is the customer writing about, and we can do that even in those cases when there are no existing tagging or fields pre-populated in the ticket, and we can do that based on what is the sentiment of the request. Is the customer angry? Is the customer neutral? Is that like almost, or is it something the customer is asking is actually a positive tone of voice in the request? Needless to say, there's a lot of advantages of this approach. First of all, it's extremely fast. Once it is set up, it takes less than a second to route the ticket to the right agent or the right team. It runs 24/7, 365. Human agents have, of course, working hours, and you can have an automated routing system running 24/7. And then, of course, the cost is extremely cost effective. Once you have set it up the first time, then it costs a few cents every time that you route a ticket to the right team. So it's also a very good path to choose for those companies that are scaling fast, because the price is extremely flexible and adjustable to the pace at which the company is growing. It is important to note at this point that there are two different ways of routing tickets: the AI routing and the classic routing. And it's not that AI routing is meant to take the place of the classic routing completely. There are things in which classic routing is extremely efficient, and we suggest and advise you to continue doing that the way that you've been doing up until now. But for those cases where you need to understand the content of the email to be able to route the ticket to the right agent, and therefore reducing the time that it takes to process that ticket, then AI routing is the way to go. Now that I've told you why that makes sense, there are some considerations that we need to make before we jump right into implementing AI for routing tickets in your Zendesk account. And I've summed them up in three main categories. You need to do some kind of preparation internally. There are some data considerations, and then of course there is some consideration on how the AI works and how that adjusts over time to the way that your business and your team is evolving. I'll briefly go through each of those, and then I'll show how this all comes together between Zendesk and the Jatana platform. And finally, we will move into our Q&A session. Preparation. AI routing is not something that you can switch on and it just works. It is almost like that, but it requires you to think and define first which tickets should be routed with AI. And once you have decided which categories of requests you are currently not able to route in an efficient way, or which categories of requests you would like to route more efficiently, you also need to decide where this ticket should be routed to. And these two elements influence the way that the routing implementation goes. Last but not least, it is important to segment tickets using tags and custom fields in order to create groups of tickets that have already been routed, and allowing the AI to recognize those tickets in the Zendesk account. I will go a little bit more into details on this in the demo and in the following slide. But once you have the overview of what you would like to automate and what kind of routing you would like to implement using AI, then it's a matter of providing the right data to the AI so that it can learn how to do the job the best at the best level possible. First thing to notice is we need to import tickets into the Jatana platform so that the AI can learn to recognize the different categories of tickets and learn how to route those future requests in the same way. This is done by taking the segmentation that you have done through tickets using tags, custom fields, or other elements and ticket fields that you have in Zendesk, and using those to import the ticket into Jatana for processing. Once the tickets are imported, you slice them and divide them into intents, and I will show how that is done in the dashboard in a minute. And that allows the AI to learn that every time a specific intent is identified, then the ticket should be routed to that specific person or that specific team. And before, of course, moving into the training of the AI, it is important to make sure that the data is accurate. And what I mean by accurate is that it is important to make sure that there are an approximately equal number of examples or equal number of tickets for each category of requests that you want the AI to learn how to route. And that is not an issue. We help you to do that through the implementation process, and we also have tools in the dashboard that make sure that the data is normalized. But this is an important point to highlight in relation to ticket routing in the context of AI. Last but not least, the AI itself. The process of creating an AI that can route tickets automatically goes through 3 steps. The first one is the training, taking all the ticket data and sending it to through the Jatana platform to the cloud to create the engine that can recognize and process tickets coming in the future. Once the training is complete, the AI is deployed and is deployed in Zendesk so that every new ticket is processed and then an action is performed onto it. This action is the change of a field that can be a tag, an SNE ID, or any other element that you that you use to define and identify which team and which agent should the ticket be routed to. And third is optimization, third and last, because this is an ongoing process. Normally, when the system is deployed the first time, we're able to guarantee a very high level of accuracy, but this is an ongoing process. The business is evolving. The kind of requests that you receive from your customers are always changing, and you want to make sure that the new requests that you get, for example, when you introduce a new product, are routed as efficiently as the one that you've been processing up until the day before. And this is done through a process of optimization that we support you, that we can help you implement, and through tools, automated tools, that runs in the background and make sure that the AI continuously learns what is the best way to route ticket to the right agent. So this was all for the considerations before jumping into routing, and it was an important point because you will see now that the dashboard and the tools that we have created heavily rely on these 3 steps. So once again, having clear how and what to route using AI and how to identify that into your Zendesk account. Prepare the data so that the AI can learn, and training the AI, deploying it into Zendesk, and going through a continuous process of optimization so you're always up to date and be able to offer the best service to your customers, no matter the type of requests. And now it's time to show how this all comes together. And for that, I'm going to switch over to our Zendesk interface. And the process is actually very simple. So if you remember what I mentioned a few seconds ago, the first step is considerations. So consider which tickets would you like to route. So the first step would be, if you have views on the side, that it's, for example, a good place to start, or otherwise open a ticket and then think, what are the tags, what are the custom fields, what are the business rules that I use in my Zendesk account already to route tickets. And this is normally done manually by an agent, when there is an unassigned ticket queue, and then the admin or the agent goes in, reads the request, and then applies the relevant fields so that the ticket is routed to the right team or is added to a specific view. So the first step would be to map what are these categorizations and how would you like the AI to, and which part of this categorization you would like the AI to automate. Once you have that, the second step is how to where actually which team you would like the ticket to be routed to, and there is a little consideration here. You can do routing using, at least in Zendesk, changing single fields, or you can do routing in Zendesk using macros. And in this context, I'm going to switch to the Jatana interface. This is our platform that we provide to all our customers, and it's synced in all aspects with their Zendesk account. So this is a macro that is present in the Zendesk account, in our demo account, and among other things, when it's applied, assigns the ticket to the current user, as well as adds tags to the ticket. And this is really a very good way to think about how to start automating the process of routing ticket to the right team or agents, having macros with assignees and tags that can perform that task for you. Probably you already have those macros in place, but if you don't, that is really the first place that you should look into, because this is what the AI is going to use to perform those actions in Zendesk. Then, leaving macro aside for a minute, let's move to the to the intent screen of the Jatana dashboard. If you remember a few minutes ago, I mentioned the fact that it is important in the preparation phase to identify which fields, ticket fields, tags, custom fields, and so on, to use to segment tickets in your Zendesk account. And I made the example here of the tags, delay, shipment, test, tracking. You most likely have different ones, or custom fields with a different field value. Once you know that the tickets that have been marked with field 1 are always to be routed to a specific team or a specific agent, then you can import the relevant data for that case into Jatana by creating an intent. And this is done by going into the intent screen, and then using a set of conditions and filters that I can show you here. Sorry, here. To decide which tickets should be included in the intent. And for example, I can select a condition, I can select a tag, but as well, I can select a custom field. And then I can say that custom field 1 is field 1. And if I apply the filters, then basically now it's not going to show me any ticket, because there are no ticket marked like that in our account. But if they were tickets marked like this, it would import all the information, and it would prepare a group of tickets for the AI to learn and use that learning to be able to automate the routing in Zendesk. Once you have your intents created and set up, you will move on into training an AI model to recognize those intents. What does that mean is that the AI will be able to recognize every time there is a new ticket submitted to your Zendesk account, and comparing and trying to understand in relation to the previous cases that you have submitted through the intents. You will be able to say this ticket looks like this other ticket, and therefore this ticket should be routed to this agent, because this is how it has been set up using the macro that I mentioned before. These all come together into the automation screen. Once the training of the AI, remember I mentioned in the presentation, the first step is consideration, then you have data, then you have AI, and the AI you need to first train and then deploy. So once the AI is deployed and is ready to understand the tickets and make predictions about tickets, you can control the way and the sensibility of at which the automations are performed in Zendesk using the automation screen. And to go back to what I said at the beginning, if you we suggest to create macros that update the relevant values in Zendesk and can be used to route tickets, meaning changing the assignee and setting the tags so that the ticket is put into the right ticket queue inside Zendesk. Well, you can, after training the AI, decide what is the sensibility, we call it a confidence threshold, at which the AI should apply that macro and therefore perform the automation back into your Zendesk account. There are reference values, of course, for this threshold. By default is set to 100%, which means that the automation needs to be extremely accurate to be performed. And then you can go in and you can adjust it and reduce it. And after a couple of days, and that's the optimization part that I was mentioning in my presentation, we are able to provide by seeing the trend of tickets in your account, as well as the way that your agents are using the current existing macros and average confidence score that you can use as a reference to set the threshold and therefore maximize the efficiency of the engine. And every now and then you can adjust it, and you will see that the AI becomes more and more confident on how to route the tickets to the right agent and or team, depending on your preferences. And that is basically it. So to wrap it up again, in a few easy steps. The first is defining which ticket you would like to route from, or which categories of ticket you would like to route. Step two is looking at how you're categorizing your ticket in Zendesk and defining which fields, which values you can use to identify those tickets in Zendesk. Then you would go into Jatana and you would pull the data using those fields that we just mentioned. And that data is used to train the AI model to recognize future tickets that have the same characteristics. And every time a future ticket with the same characteristic is identified, then Jatana will apply the macro that you have set with the values that you have decided, meaning, for example, in the case of routing, training the assignee to the right team and agent and setting tags so that the ticket will be displayed in the view of your choice. And all this can be customized in the automation section of the platform, where you can define confidence thresholds and enable or disable automation overall. So that's the ticket routing in Zendesk with AI using Jatana. And we have a few minutes left in our webinar. So I'll leave some space for Q&As. And of course, you can always contact me. My name is Giovanni Toschi, and I'm the founder and CMO of Jatana. Here you have my email. And of course, also Francesco, my co-founder and CEO. You can write both of us on on our personal emails, and we'll be happy to answer further questions that you may have in relation to routing tickets in Zendesk with AI. I had a few questions open from before, from Mike, who wrote me before before the webinar, and I wanted to take some time to properly answer all of his questions that he submitted on LinkedIn. The first question was, how does the AI properly identify where to route the support ticket in Zendesk? Mike, this is what I showed here, and It does it by doing two things. The first one is you set which macro should be used to route the ticket. And the second part is the AI practically learn by looking at similar tickets that have been routing in a similar way in the past. So to be a little bit more specific, you can see here in the intent screen that basically an intent is a collection of tickets. For example, all these tickets are about shipment, and in our dashboard you can go in and you can see the information of the ticket and the requester, or meaning your customers, and what the agent wrote in each ticket, and you can decide which message of the whole thread should be added and sent to the AI for training. So an intent is nothing more than a recollection of tickets about the same topic. And the tickets about the same topic should be routed in a similar fashion. Therefore, by grouping tickets into intents and training an AI to recognize these intents, then the AI is able to recognize where to route the ticket and how is the routing actually performed. It is performed by applying a macro that changes some ticket fields in Zendesk. For example, like this one that changes the assignee to the current user and set tags to some specific values. Tags are really useful because besides helping you and your agent to route tickets to to categorize tickets, also helps you to put tickets in different views that then can be picked up by the relevant agent in a specific team. Then there was another question again from Mike. What identifying factors must be present in order to make sure the ticket is sent to the proper queue? I think I partly answered the same the question before. You can use the values that you're already using in your Zendesk account. So let's just make an example of this one. Let's just say that all the tickets that have been marked with the tag called shipment or a specific custom field value or any other value for the matter that you have as a ticket field value should be routed the same way. That's one way. Then we can use that to analyze the data and train the AI to recognize those tickets in the future. That's one option. The other option is we can also look at all the tickets that were assigned to a specific agent or team, and then use that as a reference to train the AI and learn how to submit the same tickets to, similar tickets to the same team and agent in the future. And last but not least, there was also a question about, does it work in conjunction with an updated knowledge base? And the answer is no, but we could, if that is something that is relevant for you. Jatana works primarily with two things in Zendesk. It works with macros and it works with the single actions. So the AI can automate the process of applying a macro to a ticket with all the relevant actions contained in a macro, or we can automate the process of applying and changing any ticket field independently. And that also is shown here in our agent assist product called suggestions, where we suggest the most relevant macro to be used to reply to a ticket. In the same way, we could suggest the most relevant knowledge-based article to send to the customer for self-service. But we also suggest to look into AnswerBot for that, as that is a native Zendesk product that does exactly that, suggesting the best knowledge-based article based on the request. And that is yes, Mike. I will send you the slides. Absolutely. So I think that was it to cover all the questions from Mike. And there is another question about the agent assist product here on the right. Although the webinar is not really on this topic, I'll briefly mention it. It works in a similar fashion than what I just described. It takes agent behavior in applying macro in the past. It helps companies train an AI engine to recognize which macro and in which context that macro should be used. And every time a ticket is open, then we surface a few suggestions on what is the macro that should be used for that ticket. And the agent can preview the macro before applying it, and then simply click apply, and the macro is applied to the field and can be used to automate to reply to the customer. Same goes for search. Search for macros. You can search the macros directly from here, so you don't have to go down here and search it from the other bar. And this is our agent assist product that can also be customized from the dashboard. But we will have another session, another webinar in a couple of weeks, exclusively focused on agent assist and how to optimize it for different use cases. So please stay tuned. Follow Jatana on our LinkedIn page, where we normally post the events and the webinar announcements. And that was all from my side. I don't think there are any more questions for today. So thanks everyone for joining us, and I will make the recording of the webinar available for everyone to watch on our YouTube page. Thanks again. Bye, and have a fantastic day.